Hello, I'm Odalyn. If you've ever found yourself in a room surrounded by your own blood, yet sensed that the furniture held more significance than your own existence, then perhaps you can grasp the emotions I experienced that night. With great excitement, I purchased a brand new iPhone for $850, carefully wrapped it with my own hands, and beamed with joy as my niece unwrapped her gift. She fixed her gaze on me, unwavering, and declared, "Mom and Grandma believe that if you were to vanish, no one would even notice." In that moment, a soft giggle escaped her lips. She received no corrections. No one moved a muscle. Not a soul, not even my mother. And so, I departed. Silence prevails. There was no farewell. Only a solitary black backpack remains, abandoned on the stairs. Yet, what lay within was far more than mere receipts. It stood as undeniable evidence. In the stillness, the first whispers of conclusion emerged. As we prepare to embark on this journey, I'm curious to know what time it is for you and where you are tuning in from. Share your thoughts in the comments below. This one may evoke a sense of recognition. The golden hues of the sky lingered over Savannah as I arrived at my mother's driveway. The front lawn was alive with the sound of voices and laughter, creating a vibrant atmosphere. The street was flanked by an unexpected number of cars, stretching along both sides. I had been informed that it was merely a simple gathering with family, nothing extravagant. I adjusted the blouse I had pressed earlier that day, glancing at my reflection in the rearview mirror. Clean, straightforward, and visually appealing. In one hand, I cradled a gift-wrapped box, an iPhone that had been the focus of my payments for the past 6 weeks. On the other hand, there lay a bottle of sparkling apple cider. Leora abstained from drinking, and I followed suit. I considered it could add a pleasant element. The door stood ajar, inviting yet mysterious. Within the confines of the space, individuals gathered. Voices intertwined. The sound of chairs scraping against the floors echoed through the room. The sound of silverware clinking echoed softly in the room. Not a single soul appeared to welcome me. I entered and paused for a moment, allowing my eyes to acclimate to the brightness. Familiar faces drifted by, barely acknowledging my presence, as if I were merely part of the background. From the depths of the room, Callista's voice resonated clearly. She has arrived, her voice breaking the silence, yet her gaze remains fixed on her phone. It is not Odalyn. She is not my sister. Only her. With a gentle hand, I set the cider down on the kitchen counter, mindful of Vera's movements around me. My mother stirred something on the stove, her movements fluid and deliberate, as if she were a character in a story, choosing to ignore my presence. A smile spread across my face. Looking for some assistance? Silence enveloped the moment as she chose not to respond. With a subtle gesture, she directed her elbow toward the dining room. All of them are present within those confines. As I stepped inside, the ceiling was adorned with balloons, swaying gently in the air. "Congratulations, Leora," gleamed in golden letters across the mantel. A grand sheet cake rested majestically on the table. "To our shining beacon. Leora, the reigning champion of GPAs. The reigning champion of GPAs." I blinked, my mind racing to piece together the fragments of understanding. Was this celebration in honor of her academic achievements? It had been communicated to me that we were coming together to celebrate an individual's advancement. It was left unspoken who it was. In that fleeting moment, a thought crossed my mind, perhaps they were referring to me. I had just finished a certification course. It wasn't anything extravagant, yet it felt just right for a dinner, I mused. Incorrect. "Auntie," "Oh," Leora exclaimed, eagerly diving into yet another present. "You've truly accomplished it." A number of gazes shifted in that direction. One cousin even whispered, doubting she would make an appearance. I mustered a smile. I wouldn't dream of missing it. With care, I set the phone, adorned with a ribbon, atop the stack of presents beside a fresh pair of sneakers and a spa voucher. Callista cast a fleeting glance at it, her brow arching in curiosity. "Is that coming from you?" she inquired. I gave a slight nod. She inclined her head. I wouldn't have guessed you had the funds for an iPhone. My mouth felt parched. It is intended for Leora. For quite some time, she has had a desire for one. She's 13, Callista stated, her voice devoid of emotion, as she turned to leave. The volume of the music increased. A person extended an invitation to enjoy some punch. I chose to decline. The room enveloped me in a whirlwind of unfamiliar faces and cacophonous sounds, leaving me grappling for understanding amidst the chaos. The stack of presents diminished, and before long, Leora arrived at my offering. With a swift motion, she ripped it apart as if it were merely an ordinary package. Without hesitation. No card was read aloud. Upon discovering the truth, her eyes grew wide with astonishment. An iPhone, she exclaimed with delight. From Aunt O? In that moment, she let out a soft giggle, and I could sense the words forming in her mind before they even left her lips. Mom and Grandma remarked that if you were to vanish tomorrow, it would hardly matter to anyone. Time seemed to stand still in the room. Once a rhythm, then another. Then came the laughter. The sound of laughter echoed through the room, powerful and resonant. Callista sputtered, her wine nearly spilling from her lips. Dara offered a lackluster response to Leora, yet a smirk played on her lips. A cousin remarked, "That's cold." Yet, his grin remained unwavering. What about me? A smile spread across my face. A smile that lingers when your gaze has nowhere else to wander. I turned my gaze toward Leora. Her fingers danced over the phone screen, a clear sign of her wandering attention. Thanks for the phone, she murmured, her eyes barely lifting from the screen. I gave a slight nod. Absolutely, my dear. My hands were numb, devoid of sensation. The atmosphere in the room grew dense. I surveyed my surroundings. All eyes were elsewhere. There was an emptiness around me, a stark realization that no one was there to share the moment. I found myself standing solitary, gripping the table's edge as if it held the power to lift me into the air. I reflected on that phone. It was a night filled with anticipation as I navigated through 3 different websites, meticulously searching for the best deal before placing my order online. Reflecting on the extra shifts I embraced last month. About how I skipped buying myself a coat this winter so I could keep up with the payments. Memories of weekends spent with Leora flooded my mind as Callista embarked on her journeys to Florida for much-needed mental resets. During the moment I assisted her with a science project, Callista was busy engaging with others in the networking scene. What comes next? This. A clever twist at the end. I forced down the knot tightening in my throat and shifted my gaze toward the kitchen. I glanced over at the cider, speaking to the empty space around me. Dara stood at the stove, gently swirling the sauce in the pot, lost in her thoughts. She kept her gaze fixed downward. I leaned in closer. Have you caught wind of what Leora mentioned? She hesitated, if only for a brief moment. She is but a child, she responded. Lighten up a bit. She spoke the truth, I murmured softly. Continuously in motion. Refrain from embarking on anything this evening, Adeline. I took a step back. The wall clocks ticking resonated more prominently than the joyous laughter echoing behind me. As I walked down the hallway, my hand instinctively moved toward my purse. Without a moment's hesitation, I left my coat behind, snatched my keys, and stepped out into the world. The cake sat on the table, pristine and untouched, as candles flickered to life, and cheers filled the air. Yet, I found myself at the threshold, and I chose not to slam it. I allowed it to shut softly behind me, as if I had never truly been a part of that place to begin with. I made my way to the car, resolute and unyielding, not once looking over my shoulder. There was no grand departure, no forceful closure of doors or raised voices revealing hidden truths, just the gentle sound of wood connecting with its frame behind me, subtle enough to be confused with the whisper of the wind. The chill of the keys pressed against my palm as I settled into the driver's seat. I left the radio silent, refraining from reaching out to anyone. The streets of Savannah lay quiet at that hour, with only a handful of porch lights flickering like distant beacons and the sporadic bark of a dog echoing behind a wooden fence. A silence so profound that it amplifies each thought beyond its natural volume. As I made my way down Montgomery Street, a buzz from my phone interrupted the quiet, resonating from the console cup. I chose to overlook it. Then it hummed once more. As I paused at the crimson signal, I took a moment to examine it. A singular message. A message from Mom. "So, you've departed? The cake is being sliced now." Negative. "Are you feeling all right?" I apologize for Leora's comments. "Only cake." I placed the phone face down, and the light glowed green. The drive home was a blur, a haze of thoughts and emotions. As I pulled up to my apartment building, I lingered in the car, the familiar surroundings feeling distant, as if time had paused just for me. The warmth from the vents dissipated, replaced by a chill that seemed to seep in from somewhere deeper than the outside air. Upstairs, I kept my shoes on, my clothes unchanged. With a casual toss, I let my purse fall onto the couch before making my way directly to the hallway closet. It remained a constant presence. The weathered black backpack. The one I carried with me throughout college and for 2 years beyond, through interviews, bus rides, and a multitude of job rejections that I lost track of. It had been a long time since I last used it. Yet, I held on to it, for there was an essence within that resonated with my own being. I lowered it, swept away a delicate layer of dust, and remained still in that moment. Contemplating. It's not concerning the offense. It's not solely about the laughter. Yet in every fleeting moment prior, silence reigned, and the weight of unspoken pain lingered heavily. It was reminiscent of that Thanksgiving dinner when I proudly presented a homemade pie, only for Callista to remark that a store-bought one would have sufficed. Or when Mom softly spoke during Christmas, just loud enough for me to catch, "She's not truly one of us, you know. She merely follows closely." Or that moment, how could I ever forget, when I stepped into the living room during Easter brunch and caught Callista saying, "She's useful, but honestly, she's never been one of us." Beneficial. The word clung to me, embedding itself deep within my being. That night, I transformed into something entirely different. Unhelpful. Not unseen. A greater challenge awaits. I unzipped the backpack, yet it remained empty of clothes. From my drawer, I retrieved the folder I had never intended to unveil. Documentation of the groceries purchased on the occasion when Callista left her wallet behind. Images capturing Venmo requests from my mother. "Would you be able to take care of the power bill once more? The operation your uncle underwent." A small gesture of assistance. Accounts of years spent settling debts from credit cards that were opened under my name. Every piece was meticulously folded and arranged with care, nestled within one another. Next came the emails. The individuals requesting that I arrange flights, secure hotel accommodations, finance urgent ballet lessons, organize weekend retreats, and plan birthday celebrations. All of them were printed. At long last, we arrive at the USB. For 5 long years, it remained undisturbed, hidden away in the depths of my drawer. A slender stick adorned with a vibrant purple band. I didn't even remember why I'd saved that clip, only that one afternoon Leora had been playing with my camera, and I'd hit record. At that time, she was just 8 years old. In the video, she glanced up from her coloring book and remarked, "Dee Dee, you're like my second mom. Mommy's always tired, but you always make time." My breath caught. I paused the frame. Her little face frozen in mid-laugh, like a memory trying to stay alive. I carefully placed the USB into the side pocket of the bag, zipped it shut, and then turned my attention back to the door. The journey back to Mom's felt unexpectedly brief. Perhaps I simply failed to consider the implications. My hands acted on instinct, my body unwavering as my mind ignited with intensity. The house radiated a soft warmth, with golden lights cascading through the kitchen window, inviting and bright. I chose not to knock. I was aware of the location of the back door. In that house, I had mastered the art of stealth, gliding through its shadows unnoticed. I had been doing it for as long as I could remember. They were singing when I stepped in. Wishing you a joyful birthday celebration. Their voices harmonized in delight as Leora laughed joyfully over the cake, clutching a sparkler as if it were a prized possession. I remained unseen by all. Once more. I walked past the mudroom, down the hallway, and set the backpack against the base of the stairs. Clearly visible. Not in the spotlight. Merely present. A truth lies in serene stillness. Anticipating. As I closed the door behind me, the sound of laughter erupted from within, echoing even more vibrantly now. It flowed through the windows into the night air, resonating in a manner that left me questioning if it had ever truly ceased. As I made my way home, I took my time, savoring each moment of the journey. Once I was back indoors, I shed my garments and entered the shower. Let the water hit my back like a steady rhythm. Not too hot. It lacks the chill. Just enough to remind me I was still here. As I stepped outside, my phone glowed to life once more. 6 calls that went unanswered. 2 from Mom. 3 from Callista. A call from an unfamiliar number. I overlooked the messages. I chose not to scroll. No response given. I set the phone screen down on the nightstand, then let the towel fall from my shoulders. My skin felt moist. My visage. Das Wetter ist unbeständig. Perhaps it originates from the water. Perhaps it arises from the stillness. The drawer on my desk lingered, slightly ajar, as if holding secrets within its confines. Within, there lay another USB drive. A duplicate. The initial version. I had departed from. The rhythmic thumping echoed in the stillness, a prelude to the dawn that had yet to fully break through the slats of the blinds. As I opened my eyes, a wave of confusion washed over me, making me wonder if I was still lost in a dream. Yet, it persisted. Unyielding. Melodic. Like someone hammering at the edge of my skull. I rolled over slowly, heart dragging like wet laundry. The thuds grew sharper. I didn't need to guess who it was. The footsteps. The voice behind the fists. The way the air shifted around that kind of anger. I was aware. With soft steps, I glided over the floor, mindful of the rug's edge that threatened to catch me off guard. The lingering scent of last night's lemon soap intertwined with an air of something aged permeated my apartment. I cautiously leaned in to catch a glimpse through the small opening. Father. Crimson hue upon the cheeks. The breath hung in the air, a delicate mist in the crisp embrace of the spring morning. His hand formed a tight fist, now resting firmly against the door. In that fleeting moment, weariness washed over him. However, at that moment. Do you really believe you can simply go ahead with this? He roared, his voice thick and muted. Do you really believe we rely on you? I remained silent. Do you hear me, Odlin? Do you really believe we rely on you? His breath misted the timber. We have always stood on our own. We managed perfectly well before your involvement in all matters. Yet, the stillness lingers. Your lack of appreciation is evident. Do you hear me? In light of all that your mother has done for you. My lips pressed together. You have consistently been the challenging one. Perpetually casting oneself in the role of the wronged. He struck once more. He struck the door twice with his open palm, each hit sharp and filled with frustration. Your actions reflect a lack of consideration for others. Instability has always been a part of you, Odlin. Assistance is required. I blinked, momentarily caught in the unfolding scene before me. My hand lingered on the lock, not twisting it, merely sensing the chill of the metal beneath my fingertips. I was not shedding any tears. Not from sorrow. Yet, a warmth surged within me, akin to the weight of countless years spent stifling my own identity. In the end, his voice gradually diminished into silence. His footsteps faded into the distance. The hallway descended into a silence so profound that it echoed louder than the cacophony of voices that had just filled the air. I lingered in that moment, my forehead pressed softly against the door. And then, I turned and left. As I prepared my coffee, chaos erupted with my phone, leaving me in disbelief. A note from Mother. How could you betray your own family like this? No salutation. Without a moment's doubt. Merely an allegation. 6 calls from Callista, each one unanswered. Everything has transpired in the last 15 minutes. The 7th arrived as I fixated on the screen. Then the story unfolded. Do you really believe we can't survive without your presence? Very well. Observe how enduring solitude can be without the bonds of family. I flung the phone onto the couch, then savored a deep, lingering sip of black coffee. The experience was one of profound bitterness. Without sweetness, without richness. Yet, it resonated with authenticity. The following hour was consumed by my gaze fixed upon the ceiling. The house lacked the warmth of a true home. Yet, in that moment, it truly felt like it belonged to me. As the afternoon wore on, the digital alert began to chime. Ping. 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 A suspicious login attempt on one of the shared accounts caught the attention of my bank's fraud system. At that moment, the notification arrived. The automatic withdrawal has been denied. Your account has been suspended. Yet another email arrives. The account for internet service has been closed as a result of non-payment. Access to Venmo has been restricted. The Netflix session has ended. I settled at the kitchen table, my legs curled beneath me as if I were transported back to my college days, and I launched a private browser. Reviewed all aspects thoroughly. The combined services I had been covering vanished. The automatic payments I had been managing for their mobile phones, services, and meal deliveries impaired. Every single one of them. They likely attempted to log in that morning, and a sense of panic must have set in. Leora I was sure would be in tears without her shows. Without Wi-Fi, Vera found herself unable to share her daily updates on Facebook. And Callista. Without her Spotify yoga playlists, she would be utterly lost. I didn't smile. Yet, a part of me released a breath. Not from a place of contentment, but rather from a sense of liberation. A valve creaks open, releasing a rush of air after years of silence. They labeled me as selfish, yet not once did they pause to consider the countless nights I endured without, all for their sake. The coffee sat there, its warmth long faded into the chill of the air. As I powered on my laptop, the familiar interface of Facebook awaited my arrival. In that moment, she stood before me. Callista. However, a fresh profile picture. She and her mother, side by side, adorned in pearls, both beaming as if untouched by the world. Title. At times, those who are closest to you may unexpectedly betray your trust, leaving you questioning their motives. Yet, we remain resilient. We've always done this on our own. I kept reading. You don't get to choose your blood, one comment read. You're so brave. Keep shining, another said. Dozens of hearts and hug emojis lined the page. I gazed at the post for what felt like an eternity, each like and comment etching themselves into my very being. They truly believe they can change everything, I murmured. I shut the tab down. My feet glided forward, guided by instinct. Returning to the confines of my desk drawer, I retrieved the yellow folder labeled 2017 to 2023. The receipts, the emails, the transfer confirmations, the tax records, all bearing my name on each donation, every payment, every lifeline they had ever relied on but never once recognized. Everything was present. For a fleeting instant, the idea of sharing it crossed my mind. Just a single screenshot, a straightforward truth to shatter the illusion they had woven. However, I chose not to. Not at this moment. Instead, I made my way to the copier in the building's shared lounge, produced 3 copies, tucked one into an envelope, and inscribed the date on the back. After that, I descended in the elevator to reach the first floor. In the stillness of the safety box room, silence enveloped everything. With a swift motion, I marked my name in the log, gently opened the small door, and carefully placed the envelope within. As I stepped back into my apartment, I noticed the sun had dipped below the neighbor's roof, casting a warm glow over the evening sky. Everything shimmered in a golden hue, as if the universe had chosen to embrace a gentle softness for just a fleeting moment. As I filled my cup once more, I decided to add a splash of milk to the rich brew. I settled into my spot, folding my legs beneath me once more, and gazed at the phone. I chose not to pick it up. Didn't scroll. Didn't need to. They thought cutting me out was punishment, but they forgot I built the house they're trying to burn down. The breeze outside had started to soften as afternoon settled in. I had planned to head down the block to the corner market, just to get some air, maybe pick up eggs I didn't really need, but I only made it a few feet out of my door before I saw it. A single, white envelope, taped just below the peephole. There is no postage available. There is no address provided. Only 4 words elegantly inscribed in my mother's flawless schoolteacher cursive. Take a moment to absorb this before making any decisions you might look back on with regret. Initially, I overlooked it. I found myself rooted to the spot, my arms hanging loosely by my sides, the grocery list slipping from my mind. Then, as if someone else had reached out for me, I peeled it free, turned back inside, and locked the door behind me. I sat down at the table with it still sealed. 10 full minutes passed before I touched the flap. I kept telling myself, it's a trap. It's a trap. Yet, there was an intriguing quality in the manner she inscribed my name, or perhaps the absence of it, that sparked my curiosity. Within lay a pair of items. A solitary sheet of paper, printed rather than handwritten as I had anticipated. A pear, captured in an image. A vibrant printout in color. Leora's face dominated the scene, glistening with tears, her lower lip clenched tightly between her teeth. I looked at the note again. I don't know what we did to deserve this. You were always distant, but you were still family. Think of Leora. Don't punish the child for what you think adults did wrong. Mother. Who continued to nurture you regardless of your beliefs. My fingers grew icy as they clutched the paper. Regardless of your convictions. Once more, it appeared, deception cloaked in elegance. I reclined in my chair, the photograph lying face up next to me. Leora's expression was one of deep sorrow, yet I was uncertain whether it stemmed from the disappointment of unfulfilled desires or the harsh realization that such expectations were no longer viable. In an instant, I found myself transported back to the age of 9, peering through the narrow gap of a door that I was never supposed to cross. On the night before Christmas, a sense of magic filled the air. I was ushered upstairs ahead of schedule, informed that the adults had to finish the enchantment, whatever that entailed. I felt wide awake. I had crept back down, barefoot, and pressed my ear to the hallway wall just outside the kitchen. Callista's voice had been shrill, annoyed. I don't remember what she was complaining about, probably some cheap perfume I'd picked out for her with my allowance, but I remember what Vera whispered in reply. I remember every syllable. She entered the world in a place that never felt like home. Had it not been for your father's remorse, she would not be present at all. I recall the chill enveloping me, as if the very air had been drawn away from the vent overhead. I found myself gripping the wall, as if it were on the verge of collapsing around me. As I settled back into bed, I nestled beneath the warm covers, my gaze fixed on the twinkling colored Christmas lights dancing across the ceiling. And I recall pondering, what mistake did I make simply by coming into existence? It wasn't the first occasion when I had caught snippets of conversations meant to be kept secret, but it was the first time I found myself convinced by what I heard. Now, 29 years later, I was staring at a printed photo of their new golden child and reading a letter that somehow blamed me for hurting her while excusing everything that came before. Vera didn't apologize. Not once. She didn't ask how I was doing. She didn't say sorry for what was said at the dinner or how I was treated. She didn't acknowledge that I was disrespected, erased, humiliated. Instead, she embraced guilt, wrapping it in the fabric of motherhood and reminiscence. This is not love, I declared into the air. I meticulously folded the letter, first in half, then again, and again, transforming it into a compact, sturdy square nestled in my palm. I whispered, "They don't miss me. They long for what I offered them." For perhaps the very first time, I spoke those words without hesitation. With a deliberate motion, I rose from my seat, made my way across the kitchen, and let the letter slip into the trash bin. I moved forward without a moment's pause. There was no turning back for me. After that, I made my way to my laptop. The screen flickered awake, revealing my email still open and waiting. I clicked compose and typed out one message. Short, clean, final. 2. Family group thread. Subject, moving forward. I won't be attending any future family gatherings. I kindly request to be excluded from any gift pools, plans, or shared accounts. I extend my wishes for your tranquility. I have decided to withdraw my financial support from it moving forward. Odalyn. I lingered above the send button for just a fleeting moment. With a decisive click, the moment was captured. That was the moment. With a gentle click, I shut my laptop, rose from my seat, and made my way to the window. The sun was starting its descent. A shimmering line sprawled over the floorboards, radiating warmth against my bare feet. The tremors had ceased within me. I felt a lack of power. I felt a sense of disappointment. Yet, I sensed, complete. I've stopped pleading for a place in the circle. No longer pursuing fragments of love that were always tied to stipulations. I have moved beyond allowing others to shape my identity based on what they can extract from me. It was only when the silence enveloped me, profound and still, that I became aware of my own breath, slowing as if in response to the weight of the moment. In the evening, I prepared a modest meal. Grilled cheese and tomato soup, a classic comfort meal that brings warmth and simplicity when you seek solace without the burden of thought. As I settled into bed, the apartment enveloped me in darkness, stillness, and tranquility. I gazed at the ceiling once more, this time devoid of blinking lights. For the first time, I found myself at peace, free from the urge to revisit any moments. That night, I drifted into a deep slumber, the kind I hadn't experienced in months, until the familiar knock echoed at dawn. The knock at the door carried a calmness that set it apart from the others. The rhythm was unwavering. Calculated. It felt as though the person outside was fully aware that I would hesitate before responding. I slipped into a robe and eased the door open, revealing my landlord's worn expression, tinged with a hint of apology. "Good morning, Miss Shipley," he remarked, raising both hands as if to suggest I could be a threat. "I apologize for reaching out at this early hour, but I just finished a rather unusual call." Time stretched on as I lingered. He took a moment to clear his throat. "Your sister reached out, expressing concern about your recent behavior. She suggested that perhaps I should consider reviewing your lease? Let's explore the possibility of transferring it." He shook his head, a chuckle escaping him, tinged with a hint of awkwardness. Naturally, there was no journey to be had. "Your impeccable, fully settled history. I wanted to share this with you." I gave a single nod. "I appreciate you sharing that with me." With a slight nod of his head, he tipped his cap and ambled away, each step carrying a story of its own. I softly shut the door behind me and remained motionless, like a statue, my hand resting on the knob. In a hushed tone, I murmured, "Unstable." The word lacked any sharpness. It resonated with a sense of familiarity. It felt as if a melody, long whispered in the shadows, had finally burst forth into the open, filling the air with its long-awaited resonance. Following a brisk shower and a couple of swigs of chilled coffee, I made my way directly to the lowest drawer of my filing cabinet. It emitted a familiar squeak, just as it always had. Within lay a weathered manila folder adorned with a crimson label. Home loan. The property in Savannah. As I settled onto the living room floor, I began to sift through the scattered paperwork. Countless documents filled with bank approvals, title transfers, and repair receipts. 6 years prior, following my father's second heart scare, the house was on the brink of foreclosure. Callista pleaded earnestly. Vera wept bitterly. They insisted that the family home must be preserved, so I took it upon myself to do what no one else dared to attempt, I secured a loan. I purchased it under my name. Not driven by pride, but by a desire to safeguard them. The act belonged to me. The taxes, the insurance, and the significant repairs, they are mine as well. And yet, at no point did they ever call it my house. It had forever been their sanctuary. The heart of her home. Leora's sanctuary. I reached for my laptop. After an hour had passed, a meticulously crafted notice of termination of occupancy awaited me in my inbox, poised for printing. As the clock struck noon, a courier clad in a navy blazer departed from the curb, clutching an envelope that bore the names Vera Shipley and Callista Brandt, destined for 402, Oakwood Drive, Savannah, Georgia, 31405. Within, I had incorporated the subsequent elements. 3 color photographs capturing the repairs I personally financed, a roof replacement, plumbing rework, and the installation of a new water heater. A collection of unpaid utility bills, all bearing my name, lies in a disheveled pile. At the top of the page, a yellow post-it clung, its handwritten message declaring that being family is not a lease agreement, and mine has expired. Once the door clicked shut behind the courier, I let out a breath so forceful it shook my chest. It lacked the essence of retribution. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing the truth in its purest form. At approximately 2:30 p.m., I received a buzz from my phone, signaling a reminder from the school via email. Dear Ms. Shipley, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to gently remind you that Leora Brandt's tuition for the upcoming semester is due soon. Please inform us if there are any changes needed for your payment methods. My gaze lingered on the screen, time slipping away unnoticed. They continued to rely on me to assume the role of the unseen benefactor. Continuing to believe that I would be too ashamed, too loyal to put an end to it. A new document lay before me, waiting to be filled with words. Written with care, each word chosen with intention. Dear recipient, I am writing to formally announce the immediate withdrawal of tuition support for Leora Brandt. Kindly ensure that all forthcoming communications are directed to the designated legal guardians recorded in our files. Subsequently, I crafted a second page, directing my words specifically to the school guidance counselor. I am reaching out with a personal request. I request that you pay attention to Leora's emotional state. She possesses intelligence and a gentle spirit, yet she finds herself caught in the crossfire, serving as a barrier for adults who refuse to take responsibility for their choices. Extend your support to her in any way possible. Odalyn Shipley carefully printed both letters, gently placed them into a cream envelope, and made a soft pause at the mailbox across the street before returning indoors. The atmosphere in my apartment seemed to have transformed, as if a toxic presence had been lifted away. As the sun dipped below the horizon, an unsettling silence enveloped the room, the phone remaining ominously still. Silence reigns, devoid of calls, texts, or guilt-ridden voicemails. Upon glancing at the family group chat, I was met with utter chaos. Callista shared a screenshot of the eviction letter. She has lost her mind entirely. We are being forced out. And Vera, always the steadfast matriarch, had responded, she's bluffing. She would never have the courage to follow through with it. Simply overlook her. I remained silent, not a single word escaping my lips. No heart reaction was given. There was hardly a sound, not even a heavy breath to disturb the stillness. With a gentle tug, I opened the drawer by the door, revealing a Ziploc bag filled with silver keys. I took a moment to absorb the scene before stepping into the hallway. 10 minutes later, the locks on my house had been replaced. The ancient keys, clutched tightly by all, had lost their purpose. They would no longer allow themselves to enter uninvited. I will no longer remain silent. My name on paper no longer serves as their everlasting consent. The essence of the matter was straightforward. When the bags are packed in one's mind, there is no room for deception. As the first light of Tuesday dawned, I found myself not merely awake. I was keenly aware. I had drifted into slumber during the initial fury of the tempest. Yet, at this moment? At that moment, I found myself at the center of it all. The day began with me crafting a checklist on the reverse side of a faded water bill. No verse. Trust your instincts. Simply points that resembled the essence of liberation. At the pinnacle? The vehicle. For nearly 2 years, Callista had been behind the wheel, confidently claiming it as her own, despite the fact that the title remained in my name. I had purchased it during a time when her credit was in ruins and her license was revoked. She assured me that repayment would come once she found her footing. She found herself wrapped in a cloak of entitlement. At precisely 8:05 a.m., I made the call to the DMV. Keen. A woman named Trina guided me through the steps to revoke authorized use. After 5 clicks and a single password reset, the journey unfolded. The vehicle was officially beyond her control. Subsequently, I reached out to a nearby repository service. I provided them with the plate, the VIN, and the address. The gentleman mentioned that the pickup is set for Wednesday. Are you suggesting that we reach out to her first? No, I stated firmly. Allow the quiet to serve as the announcement. As the clock approached noon, the melody of my phone began to fill the air. Of course, Callista. There were 6 missed calls waiting for me, a silent testament to the urgency that had unfolded before I even dared to check my voicemail. Then the sound emerged. Half weeping, half seething. What is the reason for punishing a child? For the experience of being cherished? You always resented that I was the one surrounded by family. I promise you, OD, I will take this to the public eye. I will share with others that you are not quite steady. Your mental state is not in the best condition. Do you really believe you can just take my car? You are stealing my existence. I gazed at the phone until its light faded, then composed a single reply. Ensure the keys are returned by Friday, or they will be taken by the tow truck. Though her scream never reached my ears, I could vividly picture it in my mind. Elevated, theatrical. Just at the volume where another might catch a glimpse of the words spoken. As the day progressed, I found myself driving into the school parking lot, a place where Leora had immersed herself in private classes for the past 3 years. A realm adorned with shimmering corridors, beaming educators, and fees that could constrict your heart, they remained unaware that I was the one bearing the weight of it all. Not even Leora could escape the shadows of the past. A scholarship emerged from a fund I had established in secrecy, channeling payments via a family trust. It allowed her to share a table with children who bore prestigious family names and enjoyed summer retreats on Tybee Island. Yet, that stillness? It bore a date of expiration, as well. The administrator's expression was one of bewilderment as I entered the room. Is this Miss Shipley? We were caught off guard. I'm here to withdraw the scholarship, I declared, setting a signed form down on the desk. In light of recent developments, this will take effect without delay. She opened and closed her eyes slowly. I understand. Should we inform the family? They will find a way, I remarked. With a sense of anticipation, I revealed a second envelope. This message is intended for the school counselor. As I sat in the car, I observed the sun sinking beneath the treetops, my mind drifting to the words I had penned in that letter. This request is intended to be kept confidential. I urge you to monitor Leora closely. She possesses a radiant intellect and a considerate nature. Yet she finds herself drawn into paths that no child ought to traverse. Her mother relies on her as a shield against the pain she refuses to confront. She is worthy of so much more than that. As I made my way home, a sense of victory eluded me. I sensed, still, like an individual who had paused in their struggle, finally able to touch the ocean floor with their toes. As I slipped into my pajamas and nestled onto the couch with a warm cup of tea, I noticed that Callista had started her live session on Instagram. Certainly. Her eyes glowed with a fiery intensity, hinting at a story untold, but not one of sorrow. From performance. A humid mess of tears, shaky voice, and perfectly angled lighting. She's trying to ruin my life, she sniffled, staring straight into the camera. All because I have something she never will. Real love. A young one. A dwelling. She allowed the sentence to linger in the air, as if it were a sacred truth. She harbors resentment. Dominating. She is severing my daughter's connection to the school that brings her joy. From all that exists, her inability to tolerate being anything less than the focal point is palpable. A multitude of perspectives. A multitude of remarks. Emotions. Expressions of disbelief. Hands clasped in prayer. I observed intently, my eyes unwavering. As the video drew to a close, I remained still. I held back my tears. Did not let out a cry. As I lifted the lid of my laptop, a world of possibilities awaited me. Discovered the nostalgic clip where Leora, at the tender age of 8, is perched on my couch, clad in her delightful dinosaur pajamas. As she savored a slice of apple pie, she turned to the camera and, without any prompting, declared, "Dee, you're like my second mom. Even when she's weary, Mommy finds the energy to engage with me. You bring me into the light, making me feel seen and valued." In that moment, I halted the video, caught in the midst of a sentence. Her face captured in that instant. Raw, unadulterated reality. The file has been successfully saved. It has been given a new name. In the event of a smear campaign, it was carefully placed within a secure, encrypted folder. 2 alternatives. That night, I placed one final call, reaching out to my property manager. "All access must be revoked," I declared. "There are no family members present. There are no visitors present." A moment of stillness hung in the air. "Is it possible that even your mother?" I moved forward without a moment's pause. "Particularly her." He released a long, measured breath. "Got it. What if they arrive? Contact the authorities. Document the intrusion. And convey to them that this time, actions will have repercussions." I ended the call and set the phone down, screen facing the surface. For the first time in my life, severance took on a new meaning. The choice was made, and this time evidence accompanied it. The moment was palpable, and I could sense it without even glancing at the blinds. The voices outside carried a weight, filled with urgency and intent. The volume was determined with precision. The gentle approach individuals take when seeking to share their voice. And indeed, as I gently parted the curtain just a couple of fingers' breadth, there they stood. Vera, dressed to the nines despite it being Thursday, stood boldly in the middle of my front yard as if she claimed the entire neighborhood as her own. Callista stood next to her, gripping a phone mounted on a gimbal, her expression a meticulously crafted frown. A man in his mid-30s, sporting a beard and exuding the vibe of an influencer's assistant, is positioning a second phone to capture the house. Across the street, Mrs. Keller settled into her porch swing, her phone poised and ready in her hand. She offered me a deliberate, understanding nod. Thus, this is what they referred to when speaking of escalation. I turned from the window, securing the sash of my robe with a gentle tug. With house slippers donned, hair pulled back. Serene. Not due to a lack of anger, but because I had come to understand that my anger provided them with something to manipulate. Outside, Callista's voice echoed with a precision that felt almost scripted. "This is the painful reality of emotional abuse when your own sister shuts you out of the place where you grew up." Vera interjected, clutching her chest, tears beginning to well up in her eyes. "She has betrayed her family. We nurtured her growth." As I turned the handle and pushed the door ajar, a world of possibilities awaited me beyond the threshold. The gimbal pivoted in my direction with urgency, reminiscent of a desperate soul emerging for a final appeal. Yet, I stood my ground. "Is this intended for your audience?" I inquired with a sense of tranquility. "Ensure that you obtain this as well." I lifted a hefty folder and made my way onto the porch. I opened the property deed, my fingers tracing the words as I spoke. Since 2017, it has been under my name. The process of registering a vehicle. It belongs to me as well. I gazed directly into the heart of the main camera lens. A tense encounter is being captured on camera. I am sharing the necessary documentation. In that moment, I lifted the final page. This document serves as an official notification regarding the end of occupancy. You have been served. You turned a blind eye to it. You have crossed a boundary that should not have been crossed. Callista rolled her eyes, turning sharply to face her camera. Behold the essence of control, everyone. My sister believes she has the power to remove a single mother from her home in the midst of the school year. I responded, you're not on the lease. Perhaps the title, the utilities, or the school bill. The final blow landed with precision. Her lips quivered slightly. She was taken aback by my unexpected words. At that moment, Mr. Danning, our HOA president, approached with purpose, clipboard firmly grasped in his hand as he strode along the sidewalk. Ladies, he started, his voice sharp and precise. Once again, we find ourselves addressing a noise complaint, marking the third instance in just 2 weeks. Dara confronted him with the intensity of a performer caught off guard, her emotions spilling forth in a dramatic twist. We are facing persistent harassment. This is a personal issue within the family. He remained utterly still, his gaze unwavering. 6 written complaints have come to our attention regarding public disturbances and instances of harassment. I'm afraid I must request that you depart unless you are a registered resident. Callista erupted. She is casting aside her own family. In an instant, as if time had been accelerated, she surged across the lawn, her voice piercing the air with accusations of betrayal. Her voice pierced the air, her arms sweeping dramatically, yet their erratic movements hinted at a lack of control. Security, indeed, we have a part-time patrol, intervened. One officer took hold of her elbow, with a touch that was both gentle and resolute. Madam, please take a step back, at once. Dara let out a mournful cry. You've shattered everything for us, Adeline. You have turned us into quite the show. No, I replied, my voice dropping to a whisper. I finally ceased mending the things you continually shattered. As I stood there, the neighbor from across the street broke into applause. A single, drawn-out clap filled the air, dripping with irony. One voice quietly remarked, finally, it's about time. The camera crew began to retreat, gradually distancing themselves from the scene. With a resounding thud, Callista's phone fell to the ground. Her live stream concluded abruptly, caught in a moment of fervent expression, the screen halted on her contorted visage. The officers escorted them away from my lawn. I chose not to witness their departure. I turned, stepped back inside, and closed the door with a calm determination, mirroring the way I had opened it. Silence reigns, with no forceful sounds or spoken words, only a profound calmness. With a gentle motion, I drew the blinds shut, returned the folder to its place on the counter, and prepared myself a warm cup of tea. It lacked any sense of celebration. It possessed healing qualities. It's akin to cleansing oneself after handling the refuse of daily life. In the stillness of the night, my phone emitted a single buzz. Only a single time. A message left by Leora. Initially, I hesitated to press play. I lingered by the window, observing the shadows elongate across the driveway, as if reluctant to depart as well. As I tuned in, her voice trembled, breaking through the speaker with an unexpected fragility. I'm aware that you hold resentment towards me at this moment, yet my intentions were never to cause harm. I merely echoed their words. Stillness. Then, with a gentler touch. There's a void in my days without you. I'm uncertain about how to express that to them. I took a seat and let it wash over me once more. Not due to a lack of understanding, but because a part of me still yearned to trust that someone in that house ever spoke with genuine kindness. Upon my second encounter, I decided to erase it. That was the essence of boundaries. At times, the journey doesn't begin with the act of excluding others. At times, it starts with silencing the resonance of phrases that were never meant for you to bear. As dawn broke, I noticed the black backpack resting quietly on my porch. Not discarded. Neither slashed nor stomped. Merely positioned. As if whoever returned it thought that made it gentle. It was soaked. The rain in Savannah had cascaded down through the night. Weighty. Resounding. The type that overflows drains and transforms walkways into glossy reflections. Now the bag drooped under the burden, its zipper gaping like a weary mouth that had lost the strength to shut. I lingered in the doorway for what felt like an eternity, my bare feet resting on the cool tile, before finally stepping out to retrieve it. I took my time. I refrained from using any profanity. I simply lifted it, as I'd done 100 times before, when it was filled with textbooks, grant applications, or groceries I carried upstairs to Callista's place. I placed it gently on a towel beside the kitchen sink and unzipped it completely. Within, everything remained remarkably preserved. Soaked, indeed, yet not defeated. And there it was, nestled within the confines of the inner mesh pocket, securely zipped closed, the USB drive. Not merely a note. Not even a solitary mark etched upon a fragment of paper. Only quietude. And drenched seams. Hidden beneath the drive, neatly folded and surprisingly dry, lay the receipt from Leora's iPhone. I flipped it over. There are no words inscribed on the reverse side. As I settled onto the kitchen counter, I connected the USB and paused, anticipation hanging in the air. A glow emanated from the screen as the file appeared. A solitary video. 5 years have passed since that date. Leora had been 8 then. She had that missing front tooth and frizzy curls that wouldn't lay flat, no matter how Vera brushed them. In the video, she was sitting cross-legged on my couch, hugging a teddy bear I'd stitched the eye back on. "Dee," she said, using the name she made up for me. "You always remember what I like. Mommy forgets but you don't." Even when I softly utter it just a single time. She let out a soft, melodic laugh. "You pay attention. Your attentive ear is always present." As I halted the video, the screen became unresponsive, caught in a moment of stillness. The urge to continue faded away. That voice echoed through the air, a haunting melody that lingered in the mind. It had not yet been transformed into a tool of destruction. It had not learned to mimic harshness or irony. The voice of a child echoed with unwavering trust, believing I would be there. Suddenly, her laughter from the other night echoed in my mind, unwelcome yet persistent. The one that came after. Mom and Grandma expressed that if you were to vanish, it would go unnoticed by anyone. As I shut my eyes, the world around me faded away. I softly confessed that they had never seen this. They had no desire to do so. The rain had ceased its relentless fall outside. The sun started to pierce the haze, spilling a gentle gold across the kitchen floor. It was too early to feel final. Yet, I did. As if a door had quietly closed, remaining unnoticed until this very moment. That was when the phone rang. I hesitated to respond. Yet, I did. Father. His journey did not begin with rage. Only weariness. The subtle, rehearsed sense of letdown. "We never intended for it to escalate like this," he remarked. "May we engage in a conversation?" Time stretched on as I remained in anticipation. Allow the stillness to linger, just long enough for him to sense its weight. In that moment, I remarked that your desire to converse seemed to arise only when the lights had dimmed and the fridge stood bare. He took a moment to clear his throat. "Your message has been received loud and clear. Now be the bigger person." That word. Bigger. I let the ache settle for half a second, then replied, "Being the bigger person doesn't mean being your backup plan." Silence hung in the air, urging me to press on. "You nurtured a daughter who covered every expense, and another who squandered it all, leaving neither of you with the power to decide which path I will take." He made another attempt, gentler this time. "I understand that you believe we have let you down." "I know you did," I said. Then I ended the call. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I found myself seated, phone clutched tightly, as I extended my hand toward the yellow envelope I had meticulously prepared weeks ago. The one I wished would remain unnecessary. Within it, I carefully arranged 3 items. A document detailing the ownership of the property, bearing solely my name. An account of expenditures dating back to 2016. Monthly obligations, essential expenses, educational fees, vehicle maintenance. And one last letter, penned by hand, this is the final piece you will ever hold bearing my name. That afternoon, I sent it off to Callista's apartment. She would unveil it. She had immersed herself in its pages. Perhaps she'd roll her eyes. Or lament. Or weep. Yet, that was not the essence of the matter. It was not due to her response. It was for my liberation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself unzipping the backpack again, curiosity tugging at my thoughts. Completely cleared it out. The lingering scent of peppermint gum intertwined with the essence of aged fabric hung in the air. The aroma of late nights spent in the library mingled with the weight of unfulfilled hours. With care, I rinsed it softly in the sink. Allow it to dry upon the balcony railing. In due course, I carefully folded it. With precision. Carefully. It was carefully positioned on the highest shelf of my closet. Vacant at present, yet pristine. Time flowed on, week by week. There wasn't a single knock. Not one text. Silence envelopes the space. On a languid Thursday morning, as I gently mixed honey into my tea, the sound of my inbox chimed softly. The subject line emerged from the chaos, strikingly vivid, much like an unexpected mark on pristine skin. I found myself at a loss for words, unsure of the meaning behind my own utterances. It came from Leora. I clicked before I could talk myself out of it. Few words were spoken. A brief collection of thoughts. Awkward. Disparate. Yet unaffected by the inflection of her mother's voice. They told me, you hated us. Yet, I hold on to memories. There was a time when I was struck down by the flu, and you kept me company on the floor beside my bed throughout the night. There was that day when you came to school with lunch in hand, a result of Mom's oversight. It was never my intention. I apologize. There was no request made. There is no suggestion of deceit. It reminded me of the girl I once braided hair for on those special school picture days. I lingered in silence, the steam from my mug curling upward, reminiscent of a breath I had long held within me. Then I rose to my feet, made my way to the closet, and opened the drawer that contained more than just receipts. It contained the years that remained unnoticed by others. Amidst the clutter of unpaid reimbursements, the receipt from the iPhone lay hidden, waiting to be discovered. Yet remains fresh. Yet to be unfolded. That night, I found myself writing on the back, almost as if it were second nature. Bought in full. Compensated without a word. I stared at the words for a moment, ran my thumb across the faded ink, then tucked the paper into a small white envelope. There is no address for returns. There is no letter. Only the receipt. As I strolled along Bull Street, my destination was the post office, a familiar spot in my daily journey. The clock had just struck 9 a.m. The scent of warm pavement mingled with the mustiness of old envelopes. I placed the envelope in the outbound tray and made my way home, not pausing for the clerk's inquiry, "Need a stamp?" The walk back was slow. Intentional. I walked by the bakery that once adorned cakes with Leora's name. I lingered by the shop window, yet I refrained from stepping inside. I had no desire for anything sugary. As I walked 2 blocks further, I found myself in front of the quaint boutique where I had once purchased a scarf for Vera, a gift that remained untouched. It was too loud, she remarked. It was the precise hue of her church hat. The display was now adorned with vibrant spring linens and uplifting signs that proclaimed, "Grateful." I continued my journey. As I navigated the well-known twists and bends, I felt no hesitation any longer. The echoes of the past lingered on. Yet, the pain had vanished. Just echoes now. I always existed in the shadows. I murmured softly, my words drifting into the void. I remained quiet. In that stillness, there lay a profound power. It lacked any sense of bitterness. It resonated with authenticity. As I arrived home, the sun had ascended to a point where it began to embrace the porch tiles with its warmth. With careful hands, I prepared yet another cup of tea, letting the steam rise and fill the air with warmth. The brand that Vera once referred to as too fancy. I added lemon this time. Small rebellions are still rebellions. Out of sheer habit, I found myself scrolling through social media. For 2 weeks, Callista's page lay in silence. There are no insights on motherhood. There are no available deals on skin serums. A handful of unfollows. A solitary remark lingered from her most recent live session. It seems time hasn't been kind, has it? Silence enveloped my response. I was never required to. Vera's silence lingered, a void where her voice once resonated. What about the house? It found its place on the list. Facing foreclosure. Since I removed my name from the account, the property taxes had gone unpaid. The realtor's photo seemed to diminish its size compared to my recollection. As darkness enveloped the room, I approached my closet, anticipation swirling within me. The black backpack was right where I'd left it. Clean, zipped, and still. I smiled. I closed the door softly and whispered to myself, "You don't always get justice." Yet, there are moments when quietude embodies fairness. Have you ever felt invisible to those you supported the most? Have you ever turned your back and left? Not due to your weakness, but rather because you had finally found your freedom? If that's the case, this tale could very well belong to you as well.